Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And if this is your first time here, this is a space where we talk about opportunities related to medical school, but also, to be specific, for today we are going to talk about practice questions for the preparation of the UGHE University of Global Health Equity MBBS MGHD exam. And for people who want to know what that exam is about, this is for a fully funded medical school scholarship. And please, if you want to know what this scholarship is about, I have made a lot of videos about this scholarship. Please go back to my page and check some of the videos that talk about the scholarship. Actually, as we talk by now, applications are open until 2026 January, and you still have a chance to apply. You can still go back and watch the videos and understand how to apply and how to get ready, and actually apply right now and come back to this video for you to get ready for the exam. So now let's begin. Last time I gave you guys a video that talks about the structure of the exam and questions to expect, but then I realized that a lot of people had questions about how actually are the questions. I tried to tell you guys to go on Google and see the structure of the TOEFL questions, but I realized that some people actually have never taken the TOEFL before or do not have an idea of what's that about. So instead of that, I decided to make this practice review video to help anyone who is applying for the first time and is trying to prepare for the English exam, because it's actually tricky. For the science exam, I already told you guys specific lessons and specific courses you can take for the review of things you had in high school, and those are the actual things which they are going to ask about. But I know that for the English exam it could be tricky because you do not know exactly what they're going to ask about, though of course I gave you guys a general structure of the grammar and vocabularies. But for today we are going to do some questions together, and we are reviewing the English exam which was done in 2023. And it's going to give you a structure but also an overview of things to expect. And I'm going to firstly go through the text which we are going to read together. You guys can pause the video and read the text, and after that we are going to do the questions about the text together. I will read a question. I will give you guys a few seconds to reflect and think about your answer, and then after that we are going to see the answer together, and I will try to explain to you guys why that's the right answer. And that is exactly the same structure of things to expect. This is just the first episode. We'll go through multiple episodes practicing together some questions, but we also, this is 2023 exam, we also at the end review the 2024 exam, not in the same video, but I will make sure that we go through these questions to get you guys ready so that you guys know what to expect. So now let's get started with the video now. Yes, so this is a review of the 2023 English MBBS MGHD UGHE exam. And before we begin with the exam, the actual questions, I want to start by giving you guys some of the instructions of the exam. So remember, this exam is going to be for 2 hours, and you have 2 hours to answer 75 multiple choice questions. There is only one right answer, and please do not skip any question when you are answering. And if you answer all the questions before the assigned time of 2 hours, you can check until time is up. So you can't just, do it in 1 hour and get up, get up and get out. You have to wait and keep on checking and then wait for others, and then you guys can finish the exam at the same time. And you can also remember that you don't need to spend too much of your time on questions which are so difficult. If you find a question very difficult, please, you can just jump it and come back after time instead of wasting time and you find that you did not finish the exam. And another thing is, as they are showing you here, they are showing you different signs, the signs which you need to make in front of the question to mark that you have actually done the question. You will have a pencil and a sharpener. Remember, I told you guys on things you need to have. You need to bring a pencil and a sharpener. So the pencil, you're going to take your pencil and fill that small thing to show that you have actually, this is my right answer. You don't just, put in a next or just a low. You have to, anything which is incomplete will not be considered. So you need to use your pencil and then shade the whole thing to show that this is my right answer. If you are unsure, you can use your rubber to delete it and then choose another answer. So and it for the calculations, but also if you need like something extra to make your calculations aside, this is more even applicable for people who are doing the science exam, especially the math exam. You can raise your hand and then ask for another paper. And you will also not really receive any points for writing any answer on a blank, on a blank sheet aside. Anything you think is the right answer, just, shade the whole thing and show as in mark it as it has been said before. And another thing is you will not really be given more time to answer the questions. You need to make sure that you complete this exam in the assigned time. And it's 1 point for each correct answer. And then if something is wrong, of course, it's 0 point, but nothing will be removed for you for not getting the point. You just get the 0 for not getting it right. And if you are not sure, of course, you can leave it blank. And of course, if you leave it blank and you did not answer, it's going to be 0. It's going to be the same way to not getting the answer correct. So you can take the risk at least and answer. Another thing, if you are unsure, you can guess. There's nothing wrong in guessing the right answer if you're unsure instead of leaving it blank. It's the same thing anyway. If you get it right, good for you. If you don't get it right, then it's gonna be a 0. So now let's start. All right, you guys, let's begin the test by reading the passage together. You can either pause this video and read the passage on your own, or we can read the passage together. Oh, you listen to me reading the passage actually. Let's go. You have probably seen news stories about athletes who died of heat strokes or hikers who died of exposure to cold. Such deaths occur because the chemical reaction upon which the body depends can only take place within a narrow range of body temperature from just below to just above 37 degrees Celsius. When body temperature rises well above or drops well below normal, certain proteins or enzymes that facilitate chemical reactions lose their normal structure and their ability to function, and the chemical reactions of metabolism cannot proceed. That said, the body can respond effectively to short-term exposure to heat or cold. One of the body's response to heat is, of course, sweating. As sweat evaporates from skin, it removes some thermal energy from the body, cooling it. Adequate water from the extracellular fluids in the body is necessary to produce sweat. So adequate fluid intake is essential to balance that loss during the sweat response. Not surprisingly, the sweat response is much less effective in a humid environment because the air is already saturated with water. Thus, the sweat on the skin's surface is not able to evaporate, and internal body temperature can get dangerously high. The body can also respond effectively to short-term exposure to cold. One response to cold is shivering, which is random muscle movement that generates heat. Another response is increased breakdown of stored energy to generate heat. When that energy reserve is depleted, however, and the core temperature begins to drop significantly, red blood cells will lose their ability to give up oxygen, denying the brain of this critical component of ATP production. This lack of oxygen can cause confusion, lethargy, and eventually loss of consciousness and death. The body responds to cold by reducing blood circulation to to the extremities, the hands and feet, in order to prevent blood from cooling there and so that the body core can stay warm. Even when core body temperature remains stable, however, tissue exposed to severe cold, especially the fingers and toes, can develop frostbite when blood flow to the extremities has been reduced. This form of tissue damage can be permanent and lead to gangrene, requiring amputation of the affected region. And this is a passage from Open Stark's Anatomy and Physiology textbook. All right, you guys, now let's do the questions. I hope you guys were following. Following along. Otherwise, you can pause again and read the text again and again as much as you want. Question number 1 says, in the context of this passage, what does facilitate mean? Option A, reducing the occurrence of something. Option B, making something possible. Option C, moving back and forth. Option D, emphasizing something. You have 3 seconds to think about your answer. So 1, 2, 3, and let's reveal the right answer. And the right answer is option B, making something possible. And if you guys remember from the passage, it says enzymes facilitate chemical reactions. And by facilitating chemical reactions, I know that the majority of you guys who are, no, actually, you definitely studied biology if you were applying for this scholarship. And I know that you remember the role of enzymes because they act as catalysts to make a reaction happen. By the way, please forget anything which you might know about enzymes or whatever. Just focus on what the passage says, because according to the passage, enzymes are making a chemical reaction to be possible because they're acting as catalysts. So this one makes option B makes more sense. I hope you're together. Now let's move on with the next question. Question number 2 says, imagine that a person is outside in a very cold conditions. Using the information you have read in the passage, how might their body respond to the cold? Option A, by increasing the blood to her hands and feet. Option B, by becoming lethargic to conserve heat. Option C, by breaking down stored energy. Option D, by significantly increasing blood oxygen levels. And you have 3 seconds to think about your answer. 1, 2, and 3, and let's reveal the answer. And the right answer is option C, by breaking down stored energy, because the text clearly said that the only way to generate heat to the body is by breaking down the stored energy. And if you remember going to the reasons why other options are not right, option A says by increasing the blood to hands and feet. And this is actually quite the opposite. If you read the text, you remember that when a person is cold, the body instead is going to prioritize other body organs and will reduce blood flow to the extremities. The extremities bring our hands and feet. So this is not really true. Option B says by becoming lethargic to conserve heat. There's nothing like this mentioned in the text. And option D is by significantly increasing blood oxygen levels, which is also not mentioned at all. So the right answer is option C. Question 3 says, why might it be dangerous for someone hiking in hot weather to run out of water? Option A, because the sweat is unable to evaporate from the skin, so must be washed off with water. Option B, because not drinking fluid in hot weather can cause tissue damage. Option C, because the body's enzymes requires enough water to produce the chemical reaction for normal metabolic function. Option D, because without drinking water, fluid lost through sweating cannot be replaced. You have 3 seconds to think about your answer. 1, 2, and 3, and let's reveal the answer. And the right answer is option D, which says because without drinking water, fluid lost through sweating cannot be replaced. So remember in the text, it talks about why sweating requires water from extracellular fluids, which is going to be obtained from the water which we drink, and this is the same fluid which can be lost during sweating. And option A, B, and C are not correct. Firstly, option A is talking about evaporation from the skin, because it must be washed off with water, which is not really talked about in the text. But also option B says because not drinking fluids in hot weather can cause tissue damage, but that's actually not the only reasons why we can have tissue damage. So it's not that cannot really be the right answer. Option C says because the body enzymes requires enough water to produce chemical reaction. There is nowhere mentioned in the text that enzymes need to, to drink enough water for it to be able to produce chemical reaction. So the most likely answer and right answer here we have is option D. Question number 4 says, according to the passage, what is a consequence of reduced blood flow to hands and feet? Option A, tissue damage. Option B, red blood cells lose their ability to carry oxygen. Option C, shivering. Option D, loss of consciousness and death. So you have 3 seconds to think about your answer. 1, 2, and 3, and let's reveal the answer. So the right answer is tissue damage. And remember, in the text, it's clearly stated that reduced blood flow can lead to what we call frostbite, which is a form of tissue damage. And remember, that's the thing that happens when the body prioritizes other body organs which are important, like the heart, the brain, and then reduce blood flow to the extremities, being the hands and the feet, and they can have tissue damage, which is what we also call a frostbite. That is something which is clearly stated in the text. And remember, red blood cells losing energy can also happen overall, but it's not necessarily the biggest consequence of reduced blood flow to hands and feet, which is mentioned in the text. And another thing is, shivering can happen. Yes, it can happen as a response. When the body is cold, it's going to be shivering, but it's not a consequence, if I can say so. It is a response. This is the body's response to coldness. And then loss of consciousness and death, I think, which can also related because as a complication of reduced blood flow to the brain, but they are not necessarily the immediate consequences of that happen when there is reduced blood flow to the hands and feet. You do not die because of that. What you die of is another complication, because like at the final stage when there is reduced blood flow to the brain. And this is something which is also stated in the text. Yes, so this concludes the first question of the first paragraph of the English exam, which was given in 2023. Now let's talk about some of the tips on how to do these questions. Now let's talk about some of the tips which you guys can find important when you're doing these questions. Firstly, if you saw from question 1 to question 4 and you actually read the questions, you can see that they ask things which are specifically in the text. If you guys remember when I was reading the text, or you guys can go back to the video and see, like the first word which was asked in the question was highlighted. So pay attention to things which are highlighted when you're reading the text, because they're actually coming in the question. And forget anything you might know about this thing, whether you know this thing in English, whether you know it in biology. You need to answer the question in the context by which it was used in the text. So focus on the context, not on your knowledge. Another thing, you have 75 questions, and among these questions you're going to read more than 3 passages like this one we just did as a sample. You will have more, and of course we keep on making videos practice questions together. But remember, you might not actually have as much time as you think that you do, unless you're a person who can read first. I would advise you to go straight to the questions and then go back to the passage. Because if you were paying attention, you can see that they ask the questions according to the order by which those specific things appear in the text. So meaning question number 1, you can find question number 1 in the first paragraph. You can find subsequent next question in the next paragraph. So this can guide you by the time you read the question and you understand the context by which they're asking. For instance, question 1, it was obvious because they was asking a specific term which was used, the context which was used in the passage, and it is actually highlighted in the passage. And by the time you go back and you see something highlighted, read the whole sentence. If you don't understand, then also read the sentence before for it to give you context to how this word is being used, and then you can come back and answer. That is another trick, because questions are asked in order. So if you're not a fast leader, please first go through the question and go specifically answer the question as the way it is asked in the text. So go back to the text according to the chronology by which the questions are appearing. Meaning question number 1 is more likely to be found in paragraph number 1. The next question in the preceding paragraphs, if that makes sense. Another thing, we are biology students, we have studied biology. You're going to think that the context by which you learn something in school matters. I would advise you, please focus on the passage. If the passage says this and it's different to what you studied in high school on this topic on enzymes, it doesn't matter what you studied. They're asking you questions about the passage, so focus on the passage. That is another trick. Anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful. We'll do more videos, we go through more questions, and then we also go through the science exams. See you next time. Bye for now. Bye.